Hey everyone, welcome to DittDott, a cooking and product review channel. My name is Amanda, and in this video today, we are going to demystify making homemade stir-fry sauce. So I've gathered up a whole bunch of ingredients and I'm going to walk you through them and show you how I make stir-fries almost at least once a week, and I never ever use a recipe or measuring spoons or anything like that. It is literally my go-to, oh my gosh, dinner. Like the evening is busy and I need a fast, healthy dinner. So let's get mixing. Okay, so I guess I lied a little bit. I do have a measuring cup in front of me, but you could use a bowl or a cup of any sort. I'm not actually using this for measurements. I just use it as a vessel to hold my liquid as I'm mixing this plethora of ingredients. And oh my gosh, no, I never use all of these at once. These are just my pantry staples that I keep on hand so that when I go to make a stir fry, every time it can be a little bit different, and so we don't get tired of the same old flavors, and yet just being able to mix and match some of these things can make a difference. So first off, let me go ahead and talk about the stir fry itself really quick before we get into the sauces. I use a variety of vegetables. Sometimes it's almost like a clean out my refrigerator stir fry, and I'm pulling like every single vegetable that I think possibly would go together in one pan to use up ingredients. And I will use things like celery, mushrooms, carrots, broccoli, cabbage, bell pepper, sugar snap peas. I'm trying to think, those are usually the ones that I go for the most for stir fries. I'm sure I throw in, bok choy. I'll throw in other things if I buy it at the grocery store. And especially if I needed it for a different meal that week, and I'm like, oh, I got this left over, I didn't use all of it, goes into the stir fry, right? And then you're going to pair it. So sometimes, like I said, I use all the vegetables, and sometimes I'll keep it simple, like beef and broccoli. I may just use broccoli that night, or maybe broccoli and mushrooms with the beef, right? Keep it a little bit more simple or as complicated as you want. Then I will add a protein. For us, more often than not, it's chicken, but I will also use beef. I don't know what cut. My grocery store actually has one that's pre-cut for stir fry, and that's one I'll usually grab. I'm trying to think what other cuts of beef I've used. I'm blanking out on the word right now. I'll write it down here on the screen. It comes in a, oh great. Boys, I'm filming. You gotta be quiet. Milo is coming to see what I'm up to. Okay, so it's a, if they don't have that pre-cut beef, I'll buy this one filet and then cut it myself. Boneless, skinless pork chops is another protein that I will use often in my stir fries. Sometimes I will use tofu, usually if I'm only making it for myself because the rest of my family doesn't like tofu as often. Shrimp is another protein. And then depends on what my mood is, whether or not I will add egg in with my stir fry. Okay, so let's kind of like break down some of these ingredients and explain why I have so many out here. No, I never use all of these at once. I'm usually mixing and matching 3, 4, maybe 5 tops. But it depends on what kind of flavor that I want to have that night, and whether I want maybe a darker sauce, sweeter sauce, a very light, refreshing sauce. So we're going to kind of talk about some of these. Okay, so I kind of sort of try to categorize them. We'll see how this works. Okay, a lot of my sauces start out with a soy sauce. Now, obviously, if I'm wanting a very light colored sauce, then I'll either just use a dash of soy or I will leave it out altogether. But this is the base of a lot of the sauces that I use. Fish sauce is a good ingredient to have on. This is very strong, very good. It's used a lot in Vietnamese cooking. It's very, very salty and savory and umami. So if you are wanting to kind of up your stir fry sauce game, adding a splash of this is going to really make it interesting and different, especially if you've never used it before. Another the savory, this is what I'm talking about, like more savory ingredients, is a sesame oil. So sesame oil, again, has a pretty strong flavor. It's a seed, but oftentimes my husband asks me if I used peanut butter when I'm using sesame oil because it just has a kind of a nutty flavor to it. And then oftentimes I will actually use peanut butter in my sauces. So that's another option. Okay, then for acids, I'm usually either going to use, almost all my stir fry sauces have rice wine vinegar, and then sometimes I will also add a splash of lime juice. Sometimes I'm only using the rice wine vinegar, and then sometimes I will also add this one. Now, if I want any sweetness added to my stir fries, sometimes I don't add any sweetener at all, but when I do, I'll either use brown sugar. Now, keep in mind, most peanut butters do have sweetness to them too, so that's a thing. If I want kind of a sweetie, slightly spicy, this sweet Thai chili sauce, you can use this almost as its own, but I usually use it, again, adding to my sauces. And it just is a very delicious way to add a little bit of sweetness with some already kind of prepared other ingredients together. Oyster sauce to me is like a combination of sweet and savory. The second ingredient is sugar, so it definitely has a sweet component, but it's very intense flavor. I usually have it as an added ingredient to stir fry sauces. I don't use this ingredient on its own. Then Sriracha sauce. That one's just a good, if you want to add heat to your sauce, or you can use red chili flakes, would also add really good heat to your stir fry sauce. Now, anybody who watches my family knows that my family does not like spicy foods, so I usually leave this out or just add it to my own dish at the table. They can tolerate this level of spice if I don't use too much of it. Okay, now for other flavorings, I almost always add in garlic and ginger. And I keep my ginger in the freezer and I skin it all. I don't take the time to take the skin off of it. And I use a rasp to get the ginger into the sauce. Now let's talk about thickeners, and then we're going to build a stir fry sauce together. So you don't use flour, like white flour, in stir fry sauces. Stir fry sauces usually have a more translucent appearance to them, and a flour is going to make it opaque. So you can thicken with cornstarch or arrowroot. Arrowroot's going to be even more translucent. It's going to, it has even less taste than the cornstarch, although I don't usually taste the cornstarch, but that is one of the properties why people will prefer arrowroot. This can be really expensive. Arrowroot can be expensive if you buy it in the little small jars, but if you can find a place that sells it in bulk, it's really not that pricey. I don't understand why when they put it in a little seasoning jar in the seasoning aisle, it's ridiculously priced, because one of those jars would probably only last you like 2 or 3 times. So I always buy it in bulk. My grocery store has it in the bulk aisles, and so I don't remember how much it cost. It's been a while since I bought it, but it's not that crazy compared to the spice jar size. So I don't know. I grab either. I don't really have a preference. You play around with either one and see if your family has a preference. Okay, so tonight I'm going to be making a chicken stir fry with probably broccoli, carrots, and mushrooms. So with that, I'm probably going to want like one of my darker sauces, although I think I already have a dark sauce on this channel. Here's a video I'm going to point to that kind of takes you through the entire stir fry process of cooking it too. So, you know, make sure you check out that if you want even more instruction. This one I'm just mostly focusing on the sauce. Okay, I'm actually going to pull out one more ingredient, and then we're going to go for a light sauce this time because I feel like I've done dark sauces on the channel more frequently, and I don't think I've done a light colored sauce. So let me grab one more ingredient. Okay, and that's chicken broth. And you don't have to use chicken broth. You can just dilute it with water, but the chicken broth gives you a little bit more flavor. Okay, so first what I'm going to go ahead and start off with is my ginger and my garlic. And if you want to use fresh peeled garlic, then that's great. I have stopped buying the fresh garlic as often because I realized that I was starting to kind of dread time in the kitchen because peeling garlic is torturous to me. I hate peeling garlic. So unless I'm doing something like bruschetta, where fresh garlic really makes a difference, I've decided to pretty much switch to a pre-prepared garlic. I used to use ginger with caution. Ginger, it can have kind of, I mean, it really does. It has like a little bit of a spicy to it, but now I like more ginger than I used to. It's one of those ingredients that's kind of grown on me over the years. So I just put, you know, some ginger down, and this is actually less than it looks because when you grate it up like that, it fluffs up. I'm gonna pop this back in the freezer because you do not want it to thaw. If it thaws out all the way, then it will turn mushy. And then if you put it back in the freezer, it will recrystallize and it won't last as long. So pull it out, use it, and then put it right back up, and it will last so many months in the freezer. And then we're gonna add some garlic. And again, I'm not measuring. The cool thing about making these sauces is that it's totally okay to taste it as you go, and then you'll kind of get an idea of, oh, it's not salty enough or it's too sweet or whatever, and you can keep adjusting. Rice wine vinegar. If I had to guess, I would say about a quarter cup. Let's see. About a third a cup, you know, minus the garlic and stuff I had in there. Then I'm going to go ahead and use some brown sugar today. So right now I've got flavorings with my ginger and my garlic, got an acid. Now I'm going to go for a sweet, and I'm going to put, let's see, probably, oh, another sweet I didn't bring out here is honey. Honey would also be an option that I use quite frequently. Down in the description box, I will go ahead and make a list of all of these ingredients with their categories to kind of help you in case you want to try to recreate some of this. Now I'm just whisking to get that garlic and the ginger kind of incorporated. And then I'm going to go ahead and use this chicken stock, and I am going to stick my finger in and taste it. I don't think, oh, I'm splashing everywhere, that it's going to cause any harm, that it hasn't been heated. And then today I'm going to use arrowroot. Another thing that I'd like to talk to you about, these thickening agents, you always want to add them to cold liquid. You never want to like add these ingredients to the pan and then add like add your thickener to hot liquid, because it will form immediate little glutinous balls. Well, they're actually gluten-free, so I don't know. It's not really gluten. For the arrowroot, it's a little stronger in activation power than the cornstarch, so you don't really need that much. So this is an 1/8 cup measure. And so I'd say, even though you saw me put 2 scoops in there, it wasn't level. So I'd say probably about 1/8 of a cup is what I used. And then I'm going to stir that in, and you want to make sure that it gets in there very well. And so, you know, this does have some color to it. It's kind of a light beige color, but it's on the lighter side than when I use like the oyster sauce and the like the soy sauce. So I'm going to go ahead and taste it. And this is where I decide if I wanted to add anything. Okay, so I don't have any salt in here, but I'm going to salt my chicken and my vegetables, so I'm not going to add salt to this. It's actually really good. It does feel like it's missing a little kick, so I'm going to add some of the lime juice. Actually, no, I'm going to go ahead and add just a splash of this fish sauce. Again, it's a dark ingredient, but just using just a little bit, and I bet it's going to make a big difference. Again, so that's also really salty. So I'm like, it feels like it needs something salty. Yep, that made a big difference. That was so good. And I just poured just a little bit in there. And so as you make your sauce, go ahead and taste it. Decide if you want it to be sweeter, more like maybe you didn't put enough garlic, you know, that kind of thing. And then after your veggies and your protein are cooked, the last thing you'll add is your sauce. It does need to come up to enough of a temperature to activate the thickeners, and it'll thicken up really quickly. So I'll show like a kind of real quick clip of that at the end. But yeah, so I hope this helps you feel like you can make one of these sauces really quickly without having to use recipes and measurings, because if I had to get out measuring cups every time I wanted to make a stir fry and teaspoons and measure, you know, all of that, it would really limit me wanting to come into the kitchen to cook that night, because that would add way too much mental work, where it's just so much easier to kind of glug a couple of ingredients together, give it a taste, keep adding a little bit at a time until you get a flavor that you like. It looks complicated, but it's really not. Okay, so I have my chicken and veggies in here, and I'm going to add the stir-fry sauce that we made. It goes in, and then when you stir it around, it will thicken up really quickly. Kind of using it to deglaze the pan a little bit too, because right towards the end, some of my chicken started to stick. Let's see how it's thickening up here. There you go. Nice and thick sauce now. Just clings to the chicken and to the veggies. And it's a light colored instead of like a dark brown sauce this time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure that you check out other videos. And until the next one, bye guys.